So, D'Angelo Russell is back with the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm not gonna lie, like as a Nets fan, I'm kind of torn about it. He played his first two games back with the Nets, and as a team that's currently tanking, I'm like not gonna lie, like on one hand, the 15-year-old in me that loved that 2018-19 Net squad, like D'Lo at the time was my favorite player. You know, it's crazy. Like if you would have told me like back then that like D'Angelo Russell never really turned out to be like a top 5 guard in basketball, yes, I know that sounded crazy. Like this man is bugging. D'Lo top 5, like I was really a real life D'Lo stan. But I will say this much: I do feel like for the player standpoint, like this is a perfect situation and for D'Lo to be back in. The Nets don't have any expectations, realistically speaking. They're trying to tank, but in the most subtle way possible. It's kind of tough for the Nets to do that when they have a good coach in Jordi Fernandez, who pretty much anybody that steps on that floor for him overachieves, overplays their particular ceiling. I mean, that was evident with Dennis Schroeder. Dorian Finney-Smith was having one of his best three-point shooting seasons in a long time. Cam Johnson is having a career year. Cam Thomas, before he got hurt, looked like he was an all-star, a potential all-star replacement for somebody that may have gotten injured. And so, honestly, seeing what D'Lo doing in his first two games is not surprising. I think through more reps, he will get better. He will continue to show what he can do. I'm not expecting him to be 2018-19 D'Lo where he was averaging 20 and 7. But it wouldn't shock me if he was to put up those type of numbers with consistent minutes. I mean, the guy just had 12 assists last night on a back-to-back. First game back, I want to say he had over 22 points, 7 assists in Toronto. The guy can still hoop. I just think ultimately, though, like for D'Angelo Russell, I think for him, he's playing for a contract. So he's kind of going to low-key indirectly hurt the Nets tank. Obviously, D'Lo is not a perfect player. We've seen him in Los Angeles see a lot of playoff stinkers, underachieved, pretty much just got to the point where like the Lakers were just like, yeah, you got to go. And it's unfortunate because the career trajectory of D'Angelo Russell is kind of crazy. I mean, like there was always concerns about his inefficiency as a player, even back in Brooklyn. Like even when he was made that All-Star, he was an inefficient player back then, only shooting like 43% from the field. But the hope was that he would continue to get better. And like I just feel like because he was never really given a stable home, I think Brooklyn, before he got traded in the Kevin Durant deal, I think that was like the perfect place for him ultimately to. And I just don't think he's that same player that he was back then either. I think he's had a couple, injuries along the way since then. He's bounced around the league quite a bit. D'Lo's got to be the only player, by the way, to like ever get traded by the same front office twice to the same team. Like that's pretty remarkable, actually. But yeah, like D'Lo, I mean, like I think D'Lo's just one of those guys in the league where, like, I think for $19 million, he's probably not worth that kind of money. But if you could get him on like 15, 14, $13 million as a starting point guard going into next season with a clear role, I think D'Lo can low-key, like, he's not a winning player, but for a team that's like in that midst of like a rebuild, honestly could see him low-key coming back to the Nets. I know it's only been 2 games. I don't want to overreact, but I do think he may have found himself a home here in Brooklyn once again, like, and hopefully for a longer period of time. I think he'll be good for a guy like Cam Thomas. Nicholas Claxton has already seen reap the benefit of D'Angelo Russell being here, having a wonderful game last night. I think where he had like 15 points, 16, 17 points. I just think going forward, like this D'Lo's probably going to play some of his best basketball he's played in a long time. Being in Brooklyn, it's a familiar situation for him. He's comfortable. He's playing for a contract, and he's playing for a coach that honestly just gets the best out of players. And honestly, he has a lob threat in Nicholas Claxton, who's probably one of the best lob threats in basketball, whether you like Claxton or not. The guy, one of the best lob threats in basketball. I just think as a whole, though, like as a Nets fan, like as somebody that is big on this draft class, Nets need to get into the top 5 and bottom out. This is tough because, as you guys saw the other night, the Nets just beat Milwaukee in Milwaukee with Giannis, with Dame. The Bucks were relatively healthy. It's just, the Nets are one of those teams where they can beat anybody any given night, especially with Cam Thomas being back. I mean, the guy literally just had 25 off the bench. Like, it's gonna get real scary in Brooklyn. But I just wanted to say that, like, shout out D'Lo, because I think, first 2 games back in Brooklyn, I think he's starting to show, like, yo, I'm still one of the best pick and roll players in basketball. And when you look at it from that standpoint, it's like, yo, he playing for a contract. I think D'Lo is going to definitely make himself some money this offseason, and would not shock me if he ends up staying in Brooklyn for a lot longer than what it's been perceived as. But that being said, this is Insider J, and I'm out.